Sunday, and he says, Clint, we've got some people out here. Is there any rumors of outlaws in the area, gangs, and so on? And Clint said, well, we've had some stories about the barrels. So he said, John said, well, you better bring your heavy artillery, maybe you better come over to Dexter. And so the next day, and that would have been on a Sunday, they came to Dexter, and they organized, that's where they started organizing the posse. That's Clint Lee. This guy later became a director of the Iowa Highway Patrol. That's one of the cars. That's the Stoner car, I believe. No, that's the car from the Missouri car. But anyway, that's one of the cars that was out there that day that they brought into Dexter after the shootout. And we actually have the radiator cap off that car at the Dexter Museum. This car was home sweet home. Give me another one, Mike. There's a letter that I wanted. That's a letter to Henry Ford.
Oh my God.
Can you read it? Or do you want me just to explain briefly what it says? Okay, well, basically it says, Dear Sir, and what he says, well, I still have, basically, while I'm still alive, have breath in my lungs, I want to tell you what a fantastic car you have. and if I ever get an opportunity to steal a car, I hope it's one of yours. I decided Clyde Champion Barrel, which now makes me wonder. I mean, it makes a great story. I mean, I love telling that story. But I'm friends with Clyde Barrel's nephew, Buddy Barrel is his name. And he lives in Texas. And he's quite a cat. I mean, he's a guy. I mean, he's a good guy. And I'm very proud of the Barrel name, which, yeah. He knows all kinds of the stories. And a nice guy, but Buddy saw this and he says, that's not authentic. I said, why isn't it authentic? He said, look at the way he signed his name. Clyde Champion Barrel. You know what Clyde's middle name really was? Chestnut. Chestnut Barrel. And he said, and Buddy said he'd never signed that. Which makes you wonder whether Henry Ford wrote this letter himself. Why not? Look at my fast car. Look at my V8 engine. It goes 80 miles an hour. Have they caught Clyde Barrel yet in one? Nope, and they won't catch you either. So, but that makes a good story anyway, whether he did or whether he didn't. But anyway, go ahead. That kind of gives you an idea of where the Dexfield Park was that we've been talking about here. Dexter, and then there's a county road that goes out, and then it goes down a really steep hill we call Dexfield Hill. And the park was located in the river valley. And you know, when you think about it, why they located it there, that road that went through Adel and Redfield, that was the first road that went clear across Iowa. It was called the River to River. And then the road that went through Dexter, it says Highway 90 there, but Highway 6, that was called the Great White Way. So they actually built the park in between the two. There you go, the White Way. Well, parts of it was marked as a white pole. For a while it was from Des Moines to Council Bluffs, and now it's only from Dexter to Adair now, and there's the white poles, although I think they go a little bit further than that. But yeah, that kind of gives you an idea. Go ahead, Mike. Okay, they organized this posse, and I thought I had a picture of the lunch stand, but I don't. But anyway, they organized this posse at a lunch stand in Dexter. It's called Webb's Lunch Stand. There was a standard station there. And the call went out for people to come in. Anybody who wanted to be part of the posse could come in. They took anyone and everyone. It's interesting, folks, because every year at the museum, I think I told Mike this. I wish there would have been a sign-up list. Okay, you want to be a member of the posse? Sign in, please, and give me your place where you're from. Because every year I have somebody come to the museum and say, "Yeah, my great uncle or my great granddad was part of the posse," and I don't argue because they probably were part of it. I'm thinking there were 50 to 75 people. A lot of locals, but there were a lot of policemen too. A lot of policemen from Des Moines that came out from this. This guy in the picture is a fellow by the name of Charles Riley. And he was a policeman from Des Moines, and basically he's the one that kind of took over the posse. But they met on a Sunday evening, in Dexter at this lunch stand, and these people were coming in, and they were deciding what they were going to do, and they decided that they were going to send people out to guard the lane going back to the camp, and then to put people on the bridge, the old bridge that was located out north of Dexter. Then the next day, morning, at 5:45, the whole posse would go out, and this is when they would spring their trap on whoever this was. I'll just tell you this, they did not know who they were up against. Barrels, maybe, could be somebody else, but they didn't know. They didn't know until they got out there. Then they got the rude awakening real quick that these people weren't messing around. It wasn't going to be easy. But anyway, this Charles Rags Riley, I talked to his family once. They came to the museum, and they were telling me about him. It's funny because he walked in the museum, and I said, "Oh, you're Rags Riley's relation." And the guy stared me down. I said, "Did I say something wrong?" He said, "His name's Charles." I'll refer to him as Charles. But then he said, "Do you want to know why they call him Rags?" I said, "Yeah, why?" And he said, "Because when he played baseball, he came home and he slid into the bases and he tore his pants all up. And they were in rags, so they called him Rags Riley." This guy came out, he kind of took over the posse. He's from Des Moines. He brought his 2 dogs with him. It's interesting, his dog's name was Block and Tackle. Block and Tackle. But anyway, the only person that got wounded in the posse that day was him. Okay? So they went out there at 5:45 in the morning, and again, I'm guessing between 50 and 75 people, armed to the teeth. Probably the biggest weapon they had was a Thompson submachine gun. Clyde Barrow, he broke into armories. National Guard armories, and he stole specific guns. One he stole was Colt 45 automatics. The other one he stole were Browning automatic rifles. If you know anything about the military and the Brownings, I've learned a lot about it since I've studied about Clyde, but the reason he wanted those was because high-powered rifle, 20-shot clip, full automatic, empty the clip in 2.5 seconds. 20 shots, 2.5 seconds, with 30-06 shells. They used those guns all the way up through Vietnam. All the way. They started in World War I, moved them all the way up through the Vietnam War. But anyway, this posse goes out there quarter to 6. They start in on the barrels, and they said that there were 5 people around a campfire roasting hot dogs that Clyde had bought the night before. You want to hear the story about the hot dogs? Or you got somewhere to go? No, Clyde was in Dexter at Bloom's. He got his takeouts. Bought a pound of hot dogs out of the meat case. Okay? The guy who served him was a fellow by the name of Jesse Ross. Jesse was the mayor when I was growing up in Dexter. All right? So Jesse gets his meals. Hot dogs are up here. Clyde gets his stuff, starts out the door. Leaves the hot dogs on top of the meat counter. Jesse sees this and he goes, "Hey!" He said just like that, loud. And he said that whoever this guy was, he does one of these jobs. And Jesse said, "I thought I was going to get shot." And he, later on, he said, "I'm probably lucky I didn't get shot." And then he said, Jesse says, "You forgot your wieners." Clyde comes back and gets these hot dogs, but when that posse showed up there the next morning, they were roasting those hot dogs around the fire. Okay? So Rags Riley, he's kind of taking control. According to his family, he got close enough where he could see, and he was sitting in the Y of a tree, and he hollers out, "Put down your guns, put up your hands, you're surrounded." On 3 sides, you were surrounded. There's still escape out the back, and that's exactly what the barrels did. But anyway, throws the hot dogs, 2 people pick up the Brownings. And then all hell broke loose. He was in the fork of a tree, he got grazed right here. It grazed him on the side of his head. Knocked him unconscious on the ground. Within over 2 inches, his head was gone. He's the only one in the posse got hurt. He's the only one that got shot that day. Only one. The barrels weren't so lucky. Bonnie took 3 shotgun chat and blast the chest. W.D. Jones, same thing, 3 to the chest. Clyde got shot in the leg, shoulder, behind the ear. Buck got shot once in the back. So they got shot, the hell shot out of them. They were lucky, or unlucky for the police, or whoever was doing it, that they weren't using the big stuff that policemen use. Okay? But anyway, so they get in the car. Clyde gets in the car. And they get to the lane and they start up the lane to get out. And they probably got away. But the posse shot Clyde in the shoulder. And he swerved over a stump. Car was stuck. Couldn't get it off. Ran to the second car. It was shot to pieces by the posse. So they take off into the woods, into the dense brush, underbrush. Why the posse didn't pursue, you've got it as good as me, I don't know. I think that's because they knew they were shot. They could come back later and they could find them dead. Because they thought they got them that good. They thought they got them that good. But they didn't. But anyway, so they take off into the woods and they go down the hill next to the river. Buck and Blanche are behind. Buck can't move worth a darn. And they end up behind a big oak log. And long story short, they get caught. They get caught and they bring them into Dexter and they treat Buck, his head wound and Blanche's eye, and they send him off to Perry. And they operate on Perry, up at Perry, and take a bullet out of his back, Buck. Okay. He dies 5 days later in Perry, Iowa, at King's Daughter Hospital. I think I have a picture of that coming up. But anyway, give me another one. There's two people in the posse. The guy over here is Herschel Keller. He was a dentist from Des Moines, National Guard connection, head of Thompson. I believe that's, his last name is Youngman from Dexter. He's a Dexter guy now. Give you another one. There's another. Keller's with the guy with the tie. Two Dexter people on the outside. And the guy behind is a Dexter guy too. The other three are from Des Moines. Give you another one. There's probably the most famous picture of ever. That's the capture picture. That's taken by a guy by the name of Herb Schwartz from the Des Moines Register and Tribune. I just got a call from his great-grandson like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And he was asking me about the Dexter Museum and about this picture. He has the original negative for that picture. I don't know what the museum would do with it anyway. So, but that became a very famous, that became a nationwide picture just about on every front page of every major newspaper in the United States. Buck's on the ground over here. This guy in the t-shirt's a guy by the name of Virgil Musselman. They're treating Buck on the ground. Blanche wants to get over there to him. They won't let her. And she makes quite a scene there. But all she wanted to do is get over by Buck. Give you another one. That's a better picture of it. They eventually load Buck up in the car and they take him to the clinic in Dexter, who's ran by Drs. Osborne and Chapler. And Osborne and Chapler just started their practice in Dexter in 1933, and they retired in 1982. Dr. Osborne delivered me 74 years ago. They were great. They were great guys, great doctors, and I got a letter someplace in all this. I think it's in my box that Dr. Chapler wrote about him treating Buck and what they saw that day and all the things that went down, and how Blanche had the glass full or the eye full of glass and that kind of thing. But eventually, Blanche and Buck were taken to Perry. Buck dies. Blanche ends up in Adel, then Des Moines, and then back to Missouri. And she actually stands trial for trying to kill the sheriff of Platte County, Missouri. And she gets convicted, and she gets like 11 years, serves about half, gets out, leads a life of straight and narrow after that. Became a beautician. In her later years, she actually wrote a book, and the book's really interesting. It's an interesting story. But the parts of it I read, she has no regrets about being with the Barrows. Let's just put it that way. She said, I loved Buck Barrow, and she said I would have done anything for him. So if I had to live it over again, I'd do it again. It's basically what she's telling me. But anyway, go ahead. That's Buck in the middle there. You can barely see him. They're getting him in the car to take him into the Dexter. Go ahead. That's what Dr. Osborne and Chapler that they wrote. I got a different letter that Dr. Chapler wrote. It's funny because he wrote the letter in 1967, you're talking about the 67 movie. The movie people called him up and wanted to know about some different things to put, and I don't know whether they ever made the movie, but the movie that I saw, I didn't see anything that was really accurate. But wait, if you go to that movie, you'll be able to tell the part that's in Dexter because it's when they cross the river. Okay? So they're sitting down by the river. We'll get to that part of the program. You got to go across the river, but in this movie, it shows Clyde. You can see the bridge up there. Wasn't even close. You couldn't see the bridge anyway. But anyway, there was policemen on the bridge, which there were. That's true. But one policeman shooting at Clyde, he's down here. Clyde, ba-boom, ba-boom, shoots him. And the guy falls off into the water. Great Hollywood, but it didn't happen. Go ahead. That's King's Daughter Hospital. That's where Buck died. That's where they took Blanche. That's in Perry. Closed in 1956. It's not there anymore. It's where the Lutheran home is now. In Perry on Willis. If you ever go to the Lutheran home there and visit anybody or whatever, there's a big plaque out there.